Hello, everyone. It is a delight to be joining all of you today. And it is my privilege to be welcoming you to the 6-day National Online Workshop on Teaching of English. And I am very privileged to have with us 3 distinguished personalities that I will be introducing to you very shortly. First of all, a little bit about the national workshop that we are organizing and presenting to you at this moment. It is being organized by the Center for Pre-Service Teacher Education under the Pandit Madan Mohan Malavia National Mission on Teachers and Teaching, and also the School of Education Nehru, Shillong, Meghalaya. It's also being organized by the English Language Teachers Association of India, Meghalaya chapter, and St. Anthony's College, Shillong, Meghalaya. So we will not take too much time. We would like to begin our session. Just a few minutes, my computer is hanging up. Okay, there you are. So I would like to start by introducing to you 3 distinguished personalities that we have at this very particular moment, who will be sharing their thoughts and also who will be speaking on the theme today. We are delighted to have with us Professor Mrs. Sherwin M. Sunga. She is the Project Coordinator, Center for Pre-Service Teacher Education under the Pandit Madan Mohan Malavia National Mission on Teachers and Teaching, and the School of Education Nehru, Shillong, Meghalaya. She also represents the sponsoring body of this workshop. We also have with us Professor T.K. Kharbaman. She is the director in charge of the English and Foreign Language University, Shillong campus. She's also the head of the Department of the English Language Education at the university in Shillong. And she's also the president of the Meghalaya chapter, English Language Teachers Association of India. We also have with us Professor K. Ilango. He is the National Secretary of the English Language Teachers Association of India, the head of the Department of English, formerly, of the Anna University, Chennai. So to begin our program this afternoon, we would like to invite Professor T. K. Kharbaman to say a few words of introduction to the LTI Meghalaya chapter and to the workshop. Over to you, ma'am. Please unmute yourself, ma'am. Yes.
Thank you, Jacob. Very good afternoon, Professor S.M. Singh, the sponsor of the coordinator and the sponsoring person of this particular program, and Professor K. Lango, the National Secretary of LTI, and the different participants, the different colleagues who have registered for the 6-day national workshop that has been organized by 3 bodies: the LTI, the Center of Nehru School, the Center of Education Nehru, and of course St. Anthony's College. I take this opportunity to thank Brother Albert and Father Jupi for really supporting us on this project. And I thank Professor Singh for having agreed to really help LTI project itself through this particular program, which is a 6-day national workshop for teachers in English. And of course, I would like to thank my members of the LTI Meghalaya chapter. Well, the LTI is the largest network of teachers of English in India and is an associate of the ITFL UK. It was founded by late Padma Shri S. Natharajan, a noted educationist, on the 7th of August, 1969. And LTI provides for continuous professional development of its members by organizing seminars and workshops. And every year we also have an international conference at different places. So LTI has really been doing its work, and I am so very happy that Professor Ilango, he is a veteran. He is the support, the real support of LTI, and we're really happy that for this 6-day national workshop, the National Secretary, Professor Ilango, will be inaugurating and starting the program. It's apt because the LTI Meghalaya chapter is affiliated to the LTI national body at Chennai, which is again affiliated to the ITFL in the UK. So I think I will not take much of time, but I really thank Professor Singh, Professor Ilango, everyone has been really supporting us on this 6-day national workshop, and of course St. Anthony's College for really providing the platform for us so we can share our ideas, which will benefit our teachers in the schools and the colleges. So with this, I hand over the time to Jacob. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, very much for those words of introduction. Over to you, ma'am, Professor S.M. Sunga, for a few words on the mission and also on the workshop. Over to you, ma'am.
All right, thank you, Jacob. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Yeah. Okay. Respected principal, of course, is not there. Dr. Albert Longley, Dakar, Father Joby, the technical team members of St. Anthony's College under the leadership of Jacob Shalla, the English Language Teachers Association of India, Meghalaya chapter, LTI, Professor T.K. Karbamon, who is the president, the resource persons, Dr. E. Ilango, Dr. Pansuk Lin's Aim Yong, Mrs. C. Wanyang, Dr. S. Kongwar, Tosan Kharshati, participants, ladies and gentlemen, who are all connected to the 6-day national online workshop on teaching of English. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to this workshop. I would also like to thank the St. Anthony's team in a special way, and also the English Language Teachers Association of India, Meghalaya chapter, who are helping me to organize the PMMNMTT programs on methods of teaching English. You know, we know that English is often considered as one of the most difficult languages to learn fluently if you haven't grown up speaking it. As a second language, mastering secondary level English can be a challenge to many. But helping your students gain a strong command of the language is far from impossible. Teaching methods are quite important for ideal outcomes in the learning process. So as for me, students should be given room to contribute as well as facilitate better learning. So every good teacher must be flexible and always seek new ways to communicate with the pupils irrespective of their culture or religion. Now, when we think of the world's greatest leaders, one thing they all have in common is the ability to communicate well. Taking the time to improve their communication skills, it can really be highly rewarding to everyone actually. Being able to communicate more effectively will help each and every student build a stronger relationship with people around them, and you know, they can get their ideas across successfully. It can be especially difficult to communicate clearly in English if we have not been learning for a very long time. Even if you have memorized endless amounts of vocabulary, practice your grammatical skills to perfection, and also can read books entirely in English from cover to cover, you might still struggle to express yourselves. So, you know, as teachers now, we need to encourage our students to debate on a variety of subjects. You know, studying English literature is one of the most effective ways to develop the skills of learning a language. Like, for example, we have listening, speaking, reading, and writing. These are the important language skills that needs to be emphasized, especially at the school level. So, you know, this is the way in which, you know, students can gain a lot of fluency in any language if they continue to practice. So practice, we all know, makes a man perfect. So we should encourage our students to also speak in English. But nowadays, we find that technology has also overtaken a toll on the students. Most of the students today rely on smartphones, on computers to anything they write, whether it is an instant message or a homework page, and so on and so forth. So here we find that, we need to make writing seem more interesting, especially when we are competing with the popular slang and SMS language. So, sometimes when I read the SMS languages in my phone, sometimes I really do not understand some of the slangs that the students are using. Anyway, we need to, teach the students to be able to be interested in the language. And, we also have these smart classrooms in our institutions. So, technology also will help to monitor students' progress and encourage them to try out, now that we are in the pandemic era for the time being, online learning tools and interaction with English speakers on social media platform is also very important. So during this pandemic, the internet also offers offers an array of reading materials for students to learn English. So, these are the things that are happening right now. And I think this workshop will enlighten many of our teachers and also train them in the methods of teaching English regarding teaching of poetry. Now, these are some of the themes that have been put up in this workshop, teaching of poetry. Now, teachers and learners feel that poetry should be free and personal experience without restricting students and to express themselves. So they should be allowed to bring up before their class any poem which they have liked and think worthy of being shared with the teacher and also the class. Another theme that is going to be deliberated upon is on the classroom management in teaching English. So classroom management refers to the wide variety of skills and techniques that teachers used to keep students organized, orderly, focused, attentive on task, and academically productive during a class. So effective classroom management really requires awareness, patience, good timing, boundaries, and also instincts. So I'm sure that this, this workshop will really help the teachers to be able to understand these aspects. Then another theme which has been put up is is a topic on academic writing here. So this is also a very important aspect, because many a times our students do not know how to write in clear, concise, and focused manner. So the teachers needs to be trained in order to help the students to to be able to write well in any aspect which they want to bring out their creativity. Then we also have the interactive approach to pedagogy. This is also another theme which is going to be put up. So interactive teaching pedagogy is all about instructing our students in such a way that they are actively involved with their learning process. So teachers will be, practicing, or they will be gaining some insights on how to use the interactive approach to pedagogy. Then we also have testing and evaluation. This is also another theme which is going to be put up. So we know that there are different kinds of tests, and we know that we need to test the knowledge of the students in language. So we have the non-referential test, the aptitude test, the proficiency test, achievement test, and also the diagnostic test. So these, I think these different types of tests will be discussed by the experts. So with regards to the PMMM and MTT, this is actually a scheme to train the teachers And this training will really help the teachers to be able to be more competent, to be more effective inside the classroom. This mission also aims to provide quality teachers in schools and also in colleges. And this will attract the talented people in the education sector, and then improve the quality of teaching. So this particular scheme is to set teaching standards so that an organized cadre of professional teachers can be created. So, this mission has been organized in order to develop innovative teaching methods and high-level institutional facilities in all the constituent areas of education. So I'm so happy that that St. Anthony's College and its team has taken up this particular theme, where it is very important for teachers to be trained, especially in teaching English. Now, I hope that this workshop will be beneficial, and we hope that by the end of the workshop, you will be a master of certain skills relating to the English language. So once again, I would like to thank St. Anthony's College, and also I would like to thank Professor Baman, who is the president, and also Dr. E. Ilango, who are involved in the LTI. And, we're really very grateful. So we will also need your help. This will be the first time, but we still have so many sessions to go and so many programs. So we would like you to we would like to involve you in our programs as well. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jacob. And I would like to wish all the participants the very best.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for setting the tone for our workshop and for also giving a very broad outline of what we are going to see in the next few days. So before we begin, I know all of us are raring to go and to get into the session, and I can see Professor Ilango, he's ready there. But we just have some housekeeping to do. We would like to request you to refer to the email that we have sent to you and how you are to participate in this workshop. And we would like to request all of you to kindly adhere to the request that we have made to you to our email. So we will not spend our time on enumerating what are the do's and don'ts of the workshop, but we would like to understand that all of you are aware of the etiquettes that we need to follow when attending online workshops such as these. And so I would also like to acknowledge the presence of two wonderful people who are working behind the scene to help us stay connected and to have a hiccup-free webinar. And that is Assistant Professor Nathaniel N. Majau. He is faculty in the Department of Mass Media at St. Anthony's College. He is also the project director of the Northeast India Audiovisual Archives, the only one of its kind in the Northeast, which has been set up in St. Anthony's College in collaboration with foundation from Japan. We also have Byerlyn Aim. She is an assistant lecturer in KL Bajuria College. She is also helping us to monitor the chat, along with Awareness Paksang. He is a guest faculty at the English department in FLU Shillong campus. So these friends will be helping us to stay in touch and stay connected. All right. So we would like to request 4 to 5 attendees to kindly unmute your videos. This is on request from Professor K. Ilango. He would like to see a few faces online, so that when he is talking, he prefers to see some faces responding to him rather than looking at names and a blank screen. So 5 attendees from across the country, please unmute your video when I tell you to do so in a few minutes from now. You can unmute your videos and unmute your microphone so that you can participate in this particular session. We also request you to have a pen and paper right next to you, because I know from what I've seen, Professor Ilango is going to make you work throughout the session, and this is going to be really interesting. So without further ado, we are going to have this session today on teaching poetry. And I'm now going to invite our resource person, Professor K. Ilango, to take his time. So he will be speaking for 1 hour or so. We will have a short Q&A session, and then you will have maybe some activities also during the session. So over to you, sir, for this session today. All right, 5 attendees, you can unmute yourself so that we can see you. Okay, we have Chatla Mary raising your hands. We have 2 or 3 participants raising your hands. Okay, you can unmute yourself, okay, so that we can see you. All right, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Jacob. Am I audible enough?
Yes, sir. We need to raise your volume a little bit.
Can you do that from your end?
Okay.
Speaker is 100%. Speaker
okay.
is 100%. You know,
all right,
from
sir.
my end. Yeah.
Yeah, Assistant Nathaniel, can you do something about this, about the audio?
I'll try what I can, sir. But Sir Ilango, if you can just, Professor, if you can just maybe move, put the microphone closer to you, that would help.
All right, great, awesome.
Audible enough now?
Slightly suppressed.
Give me a second.
Yeah, sure. So okay. In the meantime, while our resource person is getting his gear ready, we would like to request. We've already seen Barga Amabhona. Hi there, sir. Thank you for unmuting your video. Anybody else who would like to unmute their video and their audio? Can you please do that right now? At least just a video.
Sir, namaskar.
Hi. Anybody else? Can you please unmute your video? Okay, somebody is saying.
So Jacob, if they could raise their hand, perhaps I could promote them to panelists, and
Great.
then they can unmute. Yeah.
Yes, can you please raise your hand so that our friend Nathaniel Majau can give you the hosting privileges so that you can unmute your videos. Okay, sir. Professor Ilango, you can go ahead. In the meantime, we will address the issue of unmuting people.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jacob. Am I audible enough now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, is it better now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In case I'm not clear enough, you can tell me. I can try and raise my voice. I can shout from here. So
all right, you can shout, sir. Please go ahead, shout, sir.
Oh, really? Is that bad? Okay. Okay. Good evening to all the participants. I'm happy that I'm part of this particular program. And I'm also happy that organizers thought in terms of conducting a workshop rather than talks. I'm sure that if you're in your 30s and 40s or 50s, you would remember how many lectures, how many talks you have heard so far. I wonder how many of them you recall, how many of them you remember. Okay, the talks evaporate the moment it gets over. So at least one advantage with the workshop is that you have a hands-on experience. It's likely that it can stay on with us for some time. Okay, I titled my presentation, Jacob, can I have my PPT?
All right. So Nathaniel, can you please help put it up?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, somebody says that not able to hear my voice.
Yes, sir. Can you change your earphones? Maybe you can use a different headphone, sir.
This is the only headphone I have.
Okay, then you'll have to hold the microphone close to your mouth, sir. I'm sorry to inconvenience you, but
no, absolutely no problem.
Yes.
Now is it better?
Yes, awesome, sir. Wonderful,
okay.
Sir. Yeah, great.
Right. You could see that I've titled my presentation as Unlocking Poetry. The term unlocking, somebody mentioned about the pandemic times. We come across this particular term in a number of places, and it means different things to different people, especially at the time of a pandemic. I used it to mean quite as huge potential, and all its potentialities have not been tapped. So I would like to make an attempt in a small way to tap some of its potentialities so that we could hear the unheard melodies. Heard melodies are sweet, but unheard melodies are sweeter. I'm not suggesting that nobody has heard these unheard melodies. All I'm saying is that if we can engage with these unheard melodies, if we can involve ourselves with these unheard melodies, we'll be able to understand and appreciate the poem better. Next, please. Let's look at how a traditional teacher approaches a poem, deals with a poem, teaches a poem. This is a very familiar scenario to most of us. Okay, an uninitiated teacher, a traditional teacher, not very imaginative teacher, reads out the poem line by line, stanza by stanza, explains the meaning of the poem. And of course, if there are some unfamiliar expressions, I prefer to use the term familiar and unfamiliar rather than difficult words, because what is difficult maybe for somebody not so. So I would prefer to use the term unfamiliar. If there are unfamiliar expressions, the teacher gives the meaning of those unfamiliar expressions. And at the end of the class, the teacher summarizes, and some of them even go to the extent of dictating the summary of the poem and gives the biographical details. I mean, this is how, to the extent that I know of, the last 3 or 4 decades, I've come across many teachers dealing with a poem. But the problem with this particular approach is that the moment you begin to paraphrase the poem, the moment you begin to summarize the poem, the beauty of the poem vanishes. So it appears as though there are different ways of dealing with a poem. So let's go on to look at different ways, some of the aspects which have not been considered enough to look into, so that our appreciation of a poem becomes better. Next one, please. Next one, please.
Next, Nathaniel.
Next, yeah, next. Yeah, these are some
you.
of the aspects that we are going to look at. Okay, theme and diction, every teacher deals with them. I don't think we are going to spend any time on these aspects, but we are definitely going to spend time on emotions. Emotions are extremely critical for the poets, not only for the poets, every human being, emotions are extremely critical. How is it critical? We are going to look at in a short while. And then we are also going to look at metrical qualities, the musical qualities, the cadence, the rhythm. A poem is what it is mainly because of its rhythm. Are we giving enough importance to the rhythm when we teach in a class? We need to ask that particular question. Then the structure of the poem, everything has a structure. When a poet writes a poem, he gives a structure to it. What's the significance of structure? Is it anywhere related to the semantics of the poem? We are going to look at the structure of the poem as well. Poetic devices, I don't have to tell you much about it because every poet uses certain poetic devices. Let's look at some of the poetic devices employed by the poets commonly. And we are not going to stop with that. We are also going to look at some of the creative activities. Writing poetry, for instance, we are living at a time of social media. One advantage with the social media, even though there are flip sides to it, one biggest advantage with the social media is that we are no longer a consumer of contents. We have become the producers of contents. So in a way, we have reached a point where our students can write poetry, and importantly, they can get them published. Okay, if not in the print form, at least in the e-form, they can get published. How are they going to do it? We are going to look at that. The channel conversion, and in case they are not able to write poetry on their own, we can introduce them to the concept of converting one channel into the other channel. We are going to look at graphic organizers, and we are also going to look at the importance of intertextual comparison. Should a poem be compared with the other poems of the same poet, different poets? Is there a need for it? We are going to look at. These are some of the aspects that we are going to consider in some detail to the extent that we can do. Next one, please. Okay, before we go on to look at that, I would like to spend a moment looking at the possible approaches that we have. It need not necessarily be only for poems. Any text that you teach in your class, we could possibly think of these approaches. The reason why we need to be familiar with these approaches, not only these approaches, any approach for that matter, is we need to be familiar with what we are doing and why we are doing what we are doing. Okay, only then we'll be able to perform effectively in a classroom, and the learning outcomes also will be better for the learners. So the teaching learning experience, both for the teachers as well as the students, become rich because of this. We have got an approach called process-based approach. Process-based approach thinks of teaching in 3 phases. Obviously, you could see that pre-teaching, while teaching, and post-teaching. Pre-teaching stage is very important for the teachers. This is the time, this is the phase when we think of all the explanations that we are going to do, all the activities that we are going to conduct, all the tasks that we are going to assign to our students. We plan out the entire class. And if you want a traditional term for it, it's a lesson plan. I don't want to call it a lesson plan, but it's something more than that. How is it something more than that? We are going to look at it in a short while. So pre-teaching stage, phase is extremely critical for the teachers, because this is a phase we plan out everything. Next is while teaching. While teaching is what we do in the classroom. If Pre-teaching, we have planned out everything. It's merely a question of translating that into reality, merely executing them. And while teaching can go without any hassles if you're very clear about what you want to do. And when we decided on, when we were at the pre-teaching stage, we should have planned out as well. And then the last stage is post-teaching. Post-teaching stage is extremely critical for the students. This is the stage the learners are assigned to read, assigned to write, assigned to watch, assigned to view, and some number of activities that we need to give it to our students. Teaching learning does not end with the class. Teaching learning extends even after the class. We need to look at these three phases as a cyclical process. Pre-teaching, while teaching, post-teaching should be cyclical. One should lead on to the other. Post-teaching of one class should lead on to the pre-teaching of the other class. As of now, what's happening in our classroom is that each class stands in isolation. They are standalone. Students are not able to pursue the link, the connection between one class and the other class. So if you follow this process-based approach, I'm sure that you'll be able to establish a kind of link among all these three phases. The next is multimodal. Multimodal, most of us are monomodal teachers. That is, we have a textbook. All the activities that we plan are based on the textbook. But now, okay, we are talking about the second decade of the 21st century. We are living at a time when we have so many technological tools, so many technological devices. It is possible to bring the outside world into the classroom. What do I mean by that? Bringing outside world into the classroom. We can bring in all kinds of video materials, audio materials, PPTs with the voiceover, or PPT with the slide, infographics, podcast, name anything. And you'll be able to bring all that into the classroom, but all this have to be brought in a very systematic way, and it should be done in a very organized way. So we are able to give a rich experience, rich learning experience to the students in a classroom context. We need to think of one aspect we have not been paying much attention to is experiences in the classroom, learners' experience in the classroom. And they're merely repeating those experiences one class after the other, day after day, year after year. Aren't we thinking of giving some new experiences to the students in everyday classroom? I think which is required. Only then the students can feel excited to come to the classroom. If you're going to give the same kind of experience, it's like the same diet. The students wouldn't feel excited, wouldn't feel motivated to come to the classroom. They are coming to our classes because they are asked to come to our classes. Otherwise, they don't find the experience per se so very exciting to them. So if you change your pedagogical processes, if you can change your methods, I'm sure that you'll be able to provide interesting experiences to your students, which can be done by using the digital resources, by you becoming a multimodal teachers. The next is multisensory. All of us know that we learn through all senses. It is believed that learners learn better if we can employ more than one sense. As what happens in the classroom is that we mostly seem to be using only the visual sense and the auditory sense. What happens to all the other three senses? We have got the olfactory, gustatory, kinesthetic, sometimes called tactile. What about the other three senses? We don't seem to be bringing those senses into our classroom experiences. Today, because of the technology, if you're not able to give practical experiences to students, I'm sure with the advantage of virtual reality, artificial intelligence, simulation, augmented reality, we'll be able to bring in all those things. That's how we can become innovative. Because once we get back to our classroom, our students are no longer going to be what they were earlier. They are going to expect different kind of experiences in the classroom, in which case we need to go for multisensory experiences. The next is, we are looking at multiple intelligences. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this particular concept. It was Howard Gardner in 1983 came up with this intelligences. Initially, he spoke about 7 different types of intelligences. Later on, he increased to 9. He added 2 more intelligences to it. Those intelligences are, it's known to you. I'll quickly mention those intelligences. He talks about verbal linguistic intelligence, math logic intelligence, spatial intelligence, musical intelligence, bodily kinesthetic intelligence, intrapersonal intelligence, interpersonal intelligence. The other 2 intelligences that he added are naturalistic intelligence and existential intelligence. He says that, Howard Gardner says that all human beings have all these intelligences. There is no exception. But one or two intelligences dominate over the other intelligences. Even though we have got all the intelligences in each one of us, one or two intelligences dominate other intelligences. I'm sure that you would have heard of Srinivasa Ramanujam, mathematical wizard. You know, when he joined the BSc in Chennai in one of the colleges called Pachapas College, he was not able to get through his English examination. He was not able to get through his Sanskrit test. He was not able to get through his physiology. Though the person is a mathematical genius, his mathologic intelligence was quite high, but his verbal linguistic intelligence was very low. There could be so many Ramanujams in your classroom. Don't expect, if you have 30, 40, 60, 70 students in your class, don't expect every learner to be very high in verbal linguistic intelligence. It doesn't mean that they are dull-headed students. Their intelligences are different. They might not have verbal linguistic intelligence, but the other kind of intelligences, maybe musical intelligence, maybe interpersonal intelligence, maybe existential intelligence are quite high in those people. So we need to consider these type of intelligences when you plan activities. When you give them the task, you need to plan task activities depending on the intelligence of the students. Lastly, teacher-centric and learner-centric classrooms. Most of us, I know, adopt teacher-centric classes because it is easier to do it. It is understandable why subject teachers go for teacher-centric classes, because they're explaining theories, they're explaining concepts, they're explaining formulas. So teaching-centric class is required. What about us? We are not teaching them any theories. We are not teaching them any concepts. We are giving them the skills. We are training them in skill. That's the reason we talk about 4 skills. We are training them. You know, skill can be developed only when the learners are involved in doing those skills. And when it comes to language, it is said that language can be learned only by using. And it is also said that you use it or lose it. If the learners don't use the language, they would forget the language. They would not be able to internalize the language. They would not be able to store it. They would not be able to use it appropriate to the context. It's quite strange that without giving any kind of experience, skill experiences, we expect our learners to become fluent users of English language, proficient use of English language. Ma'am, in our inaugural address, she was mentioning about English language. She said English is a difficult language. English is not a difficult language when you compare it with Indian languages. When you compare it with Hindi or Tamil, any Indian language, English is an easy language. We are making it difficult for the learners to learn it. The kind of approach that we have is making it difficult for the learners to learn it. So let's not blame the learners for their incompetence in learning the language or the teachers in a way. It is the kind of approach, the method, the technique that we adopt in our classroom. This is what we have been doing it for so many years. We need to change these methods. We need to change these techniques or the strategies. Only then our learners will be able to learn the language. I can assure you that English is an Indian language, one of the youngest Indian languages. In fact, English is older than Hindi language if you get into the history of it. So English is an easy language. We are making it difficult for our students. And I think we need to find new ways of, indigenous ways of, teaching language so the learners are able to learn it and learners are able to enjoy learning the language. We need to create love for the language. All that become possible once you involve the learners in the process of learning it. So when you're familiar with, I didn't get into the details of any of these approaches, and I've merely given you the basic tenets of these approaches. So once you're clear about these approaches, I'm sure that your classroom dynamics will vary. You would enjoy your classroom experiences more than you enjoying it. We will find our students enjoying the classes. Again, I'm mentioning it. Okay, learner experiences, classroom experiences, everyday experiences. When a student comes to the college or a school, he is with us at least for about 6 hours. And we need to give different kind of experience in each one of the classes. If you look at all the 6 classes, they are virtually the same. The only difference is that the different teacher, different subject. Otherwise, everything seems to be the same. It has become monotonous for the learners. It was all right till then, till now. But hereafter, when the students come back to our classrooms, new normal, when we get back to our classrooms, okay, and we need to face a different set of students. Their expectations would be different because, we know that our students are a kind of surfing generation. Give them a remote, they would not stay on with any one particular channel. They keep surfing the channels. They keep, moving from one social media to another social media. They have no patience, and we need to remember that. We need to understand the kind of, in a way, the damage that technology has done to them. Okay, they have no patience. They expect sensational things. They expect new kind of experiences. The point I'm trying to make here is that our classroom reality has changed. when we get back to our classrooms, we need to adopt different kind of strategies, whether you're teaching poetry or teaching something else, prose, drama, fiction, or communication skills, whatever that you are going to teach, you have to teach them differently. It has to be there has to be a departure. If there isn't a departure, and we are going to flop in our classes. Okay, next we are going to watch a video. I'm sure that, as Jacob pointed out, you've got a paper with you and a pencil with you. This video is only for 4 minutes. I want you to jot down some of the important ideas, the ideas that you think are important to you, the ideas that you think are appealing to you. Jot them down, and then we'll take it up for discussion. Over to you, Jacob. Play it only for 4 minutes.
I learned to read very early, very young, and my father was fond of writing doggerel verses. So the children, the two of us, we started writing books very early. He would print them out and we would illustrate them, and many times the text was in verse. But I started reading poems that I found. I remember my grandmother, who wasn't a bookish woman, had a tiny little anthology. It was physically a small object, as I remember, of beloved poems, or, you know, some really sort of comprehensive title of that kind. And I remember reading Blake's Little Black Boy, and I remember reading the song from Cymbeline, Fear No More, the Heat of the Sun. And I must have been 5 years old, 4 years old, little. But I heard those poems. I often didn't know, with Blake's poem, I knew obviously nothing of the historical background of the poem, but the cry from the heart to my ear, that I could hear. And I thought, these are the people I am speaking to, and this is why my everyday life is such a catastrophe. And I remember a little later than that, having in my mind a sort of private, crucial competition for the greatest poem ever written, of course, based on the sample I had then read. And the finalists were Blake's Little Black Boy and Swanee River. And if you think about it, they're tonally very like. The same solitary voice, raised in lament, essentially, and grief. That tone reached me very quickly. The songs from the plays of Shakespeare were very different, but many times I didn't understand some of the words, and I had no idea that they filled what need they filled in the play. I don't even think I knew that they were parts of plays, but I read them hypnotically. Even after I had memorized them, I kept reading them. And as I got older, I read constantly much fiction, which I still read to divert myself.
Can you stop it, Jacob, please?
When I want
Can
to
you
be
stop
happy,
it, please?
I read a novel.
Right. Some of the important ideas that you jotted down. Can a couple of you respond to it? The ideas that you think are important. It's an open-ended question. Okay, the ideas that you think of. What is the takeaway from this particular video? Do you think she was able to say something significant? Does this video have any kind of relevance to the workshop that we are going to have now? Could one of you respond, please? Unmute yourself and respond.
Okay, we have Grace. Are you trying to respond?
Yeah, let's have a response from Grace.
Yes, sir. I'm really happy to
Yeah.
join for this workshop. And I'm really glad to have the teaching from you all. And my request is to kindly, if possible, I want to get all these teachings or the printout of all these, sir, whichever you have shown today's class.
Yeah, Grace, the question is, what did you get out of this particular video? What are the takeaways from this particular video?
Yes, sir, it's a big benefit. As actually, I am not an English student in my study, but at present I'm teaching English, and it's it helped me, it brings me benefits by listening and hearing of your teaching.
Okay, for the sake of time,
Yes,
somebody
thank you, sir.
mentioned that, she talks about her early childhood, talks about emotions. Okay, these are some of the things I really wanted from you. She talks about the cry from the heart that she could hear, cry from the heart, solitary voice, grief. Okay, these are some of the important,
Just make virtual problems, please.
Sorry. Yeah,
Hello.
right.
Yeah.
Can you mute yourselves? Okay, these are some of the things that emerge out of this particular video. And there is another reason why I played it. We all know that she was given the Nobel Prize for this year, Nobel Prize 2020 for literature. We need to relate poetry, literature to the contemporary context. Students think that poetry or the poems are written at the ancient time and they have no relevance to the contemporary period. Okay, if you show them a video of this kind, something that has happened recently, okay, students will be able to find relevance to it. Who knows, one of your students or some of your students might become a Nobel laureate. Show them the avenues, show them the options that they have. Okay, there are two things that were important. One, of course, she did talk about childhood, and she mentioned that even when she was very little, about 4-year-old or 5-year-old, okay, she started writing poetry. Okay, her father used to print them and she used to illustrate them. So no age, let's not assume just because a child is in the first standard, let's not think that the child is not matured enough to do what we want them to do it. They can be very creative, they can be very imaginative. The point is the emotions that are very important to her. Cry from the heart, solitary voice, grief. These were the important things. And the reason why I deliberately played this video was I want you to relate it to the contemporary context. I definitely want to, when you teach poetry, okay, bring in a video of this sort and to show it to the students. Let the students know that she was given the Nobel Prize. You don't have to elaborate on it. Just arouse that curiosity. Let them know that there is something like a Nobel Prize. Let them know that Louis Gluck was the one who was given the Nobel Prize. Good enough. The purpose is served. We don't have to deal anything more. We just need only about 5 minutes of your time to introduce the students to something that happened very recently. Okay, now we are going to look at the poem that we are going to consider now. Can we go on to the next slide, please? Can you look through the poem? I chose Robert Frost because all of us know that he is a very popular poet of America. And this poem, The Road Not Taken, is much anthologized. Right from high school to the university level, the poem is prescribed. It's a very simple poem, but we all know that its simplicity is deceptive. It's a very complex poem, okay? Much of the poem depends on the kind of response that we bring into this particular poem, the kind of experiences that we bring into the poem. So can you take about a couple of minutes, even if you're familiar with this particular poem, I want you to re-familiarize yourself. Can you quickly go through the poem? Because we are going to have some kind of activities. We are not going to have any activities at the end of the presentation. I'm bringing activities into my presentation itself. Okay, there are no separate activities like presentation and then the workshop. Okay, I'm bringing workshop mode into my presentation itself. So we need to do some kind of activities based on this poem. Can you take about a couple of minutes to look through? All right. I'm not going to read out the poem. The problem with me is as a teacher, when I read out a poem, I read it out like a prose piece. So thereby we know that we are damaging the beauty of the poem. So I'm going to ask Robert Frost himself to read out the poem. Can we listen to him? Next slide, please, and to play the video. It's in fact audio.
Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth, then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had worn them really about the same, and both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
Thank you. Yeah, you could stop it now. Right. This is what the multimodal approach is all about. Okay, today we have the facility of bringing the poet into the classroom. It's almost like, listening to the poet himself. Okay, in person. That's a kind of experience that you could create. And we are going to watch a video on this. While you're watching the video, I want you to pay attention to the emotions that lie beneath the lines of the poem, emotions that lie buried in the poem, emotions that emerge out of the poem. I don't want you to focus more on the thoughts of the poem, the meaning of the poem, but pay attention to the emotions of the poem. Yes, please. Video.
Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both and be one traveler. Long I stood and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though, as for that, the passing there had really worn them about the same. And both that morning equally lay in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day. Yet, knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
Thank you. Can we go on to the next one, please? This is what this is what the multimodal approach is all about. Okay, as a teacher, I don't think I would have done justice to this particular poem had I read out the poem. So instead, I got the poet himself to do it, and I've got another person to read out the poem. We had the auditory, we also had the visual. Okay, so students, even if they're not interested, even if the poem does not make any sense, I'm sure this is one of the ways of getting the students excited, one of the ways of getting students motivated. If not the entire poem, at least some part of the poem, I'm sure that they would have been able to follow, they would have been able to understand it. Since we are dealing with the emotions, not the meaning of the poem, okay, what do you think is the emotional state of the poet, or the emotional state of the poetic speaker, or the traveler? You know, we come across a traveler in the poem. What do you think is the emotion, the emotional state of the traveler in the poem? Okay, for the sake of time, I'm going on to answer the question that I raised. I thought it could be a workshop mode, but it looks as though we are running out of time. And I want to look at the last stanza.
Confused.
Yeah, just look at the last stanza, the first line of it. I shall be telling this with a sigh. The word sigh is pregnant with the meaning. A lot of emotional connotation you could find in this word sigh. Is it because of relief? Is the sigh because of happiness? Is the sigh because of sadness? Is the sigh because of desperation? Does the poet make it clear? The poet does not say that. You know, no poet says that this is what my emotion is. Okay, it is up to the reader to dig out. You could look at it any way you want to. You could look at the sign as a sign of desperation, sign of exasperation, or you could look at it as a sign of happiness. And that is closely linked to the last line of the poem. And when you paid attention to the way Robert Frost is reading out, and he says the last line, that has made all the difference. The emphasis is not on difference, but all the difference. So the sigh is in a way related to that. So if you're looking for the emotion of the poem, the emotion is not so very clear. It depends on the reader, the way you interpret the poem. The emotion could be happiness, the emotion could be sadness. Okay, so it all depends on it. And critics, the theoreticians, or the seasoned teachers say that poetry should be felt. It should be a felt experience. You know, emotion should be experienced more than the thoughts, more than the meaning of the poem. What is important is the emotion that lie in the poem. We need to give importance to the poem, but as teachers, we seem to focus more on the meaning of the poem rather than on the emotions. You know, whenever we teach different genres of literature, we need to approach them differently. You know, when you teach a poetry has to be recited. When you teach a play has to be enacted. When you teach a story, a short story, or even a novel, stories have to be narrated. So these are all different genres. Otherwise, why should we have different genres? We could have just one genre and the prose form, and then that's how most of the teachers seem to be treating all the literary genres in the classroom. Whether it is a poetry or a story or a play, all the genres, we read them out, we explain them. We don't make a distinction among the different kind of genres. And if you want students to enjoy the experience of literature classes or any literary text, you need to vary the strategy depending on the genre that you're dealing with. So poetry has to be recited, okay? And to write poetry, emotion is very important. Without emotion, poets themselves cannot write. Let's look at why emotion is important to the poet and why emotion is important to the readers, to the humans on the whole. Let's look at why emotion is important to the poets. Next one, please. All of us are familiar with Wordsworth's definition of poetry. He said, poetry is the spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. It takes its origin from emotion recollected in tranquility. I mean, this is known to everybody. Okay, poetry to him is feeling. Poetry to Wordsworth is feelings. Not only to Wordsworth, to any poet for that matter, poetry is equivalent to feelings. What sort of feelings are they? They are powerful feelings. And those powerful feelings, they are not labored. And the poet does not strain to express those feelings. These are all spontaneous overflow of powerful feelings. A poem is a spontaneous overflow. The poem comes on its own. If you're looking at the origin of the poem, the genesis of the poem, okay, how the poem comes into existence, it is basically the emotion. So as critics, as students of literature, we need to give importance to the emotions, and the emotion recollected in tranquility, okay? And you can't write a poem under duress. You can't write a poem when you have a troubled state of mind. It has to be a tranquil state. Only in such a tranquil state, you'll be able to give expression to the emotion that you are strongly experienced. So emotion is very important to write poetry. Next one, please. Let's look at what Robert Frost himself says. Frost says, poetry is when an emotion has found its thought and the thought has found its words. Look at the link that he establishes. Emotions, thoughts, words. You need to have emotions. And once you have emotions, you need to find thoughts. And the thoughts come into existence with the words. So again here, reinforcing the same idea, to write poem, what is important is the basic emotion. Next one, please. Just one more to emphasize on emotion. T.S. Eliot, all of us are familiar with him as students of literature, the most influential theoretician as well as a poet. And he said, in the work of art, he's not talking about the performing arts. If performing arts like, let's say, dance, drama, painting, sketching, you'll be able to give expression to the emotions. But in the form of writing, how is it possible for you to give expression to emotions? And he said that when you want to express an emotion, you need to find objective correlative. What are the objective correlatives? The objective correlatives can be set of objects, can be a situation or a chain of events. And when these are presented, when the set of objects or the chain of events or the situation, when these are presented, emotions can be evoked. Let me illustrate this. You know, in the poem that we have seen, The Road Not Taken, what we come across is a situation. Okay, a situation wherein a traveler stands at the crossroads where the road forks, the road bifurcates, and he is in a dilemma and he has to take a decision. He has to figure out which road that he has to take. Okay, that is the kind of situation. And the emotion, and you know, we face such options every day. Even you know, as simple as some of the emotions, some of the decisions that we make can be very simple. Some of the decisions that we make may be life-changing. In a simple decision like the dress that you have worn today, you have decided this morning what kind of dress that you would wear. You have an option. You could have chosen anything else, but you have an option for choosing it. So we are every day we are faced with options. Whenever you have an option, you are in a dilemma, this or that. Okay, so emotions are very critical. So I'm trying to point out that emotions are something which is extremely critical for the poets to write poems. What about the readers? What about other humans? Next one, please. As humans, we are seen as merely a bundle of emotions. Okay, humans are merely bundle of emotions. You know, Aristotle said that humans have 14 different kinds of emotions, and the modern psychology said that we have got about 90 different kinds of emotions. But there is a kind of general agreement. They all say that we have got about 27 different kinds of emotions, but all of them agree that there are 4 emotions which are irreducible. The basic emotions are fear, anger, happiness, and sadness. All human beings, okay, irrespective of the place that you belong to, whether you are an Argentinian or Nigerian, Indian, Fujian, whoever it may be, all of us have all these emotions. Humans, all humans, whether you are young or old, man or women, or otherwise rich or poor, all humans have the same kind of emotions, but our intellect may vary. Intellect is individualistic, but emotions are universal. Okay, so when emotions are universal, I think we need to pay attention to our emotions more than anything else. And now many say that emotional intelligence is more important than the intelligence itself. If you want to succeed in your personal life, in your social life, in your professional life, what is important is not your intelligence, but it is the emotional intelligence. Okay, lastly on this, next one, please. I'm sure you are familiar with, next one, please. You're familiar with this book, Daniel Goleman, Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ. This book was published in 1995. Immediately it became a bestseller. Okay, more than 5 million copies are sold. It's translated into 40 different languages. Okay, and he talks about 2 kinds of minds. He talks about the emotional mind and the rational mind. And he says that rational mind cannot dictate terms to emotional minds as to what kind of emotion that it should have. Quite interestingly, contrastingly, the emotional mind can manipulate the rational mind. Our emotions can influence our thoughts. Emotions can influence our decisions. Emotions are so very important. So what is that I'm trying to emphasize so far? One of the aspects that we need to focus on, I'm emphasizing it so much primarily because when we teach a poem, we look at only the meaning of it. We don't look at the emotions of it. The other equivalent terms for emotions are, we talk about tone, we talk about mood, and we need to realize that mood or tone or emotion, whatever you call it, it's at the root of the poem. So without emotions, words are dead on the pages. Words are bland, meaningless, purposeless on the pages. It is the emotion that gives life, makes the words come alive. So emotions are very important. So next time when you deal with a poem, I want you to focus on emotions more than you focus on the meaning of it. Meaning differs from person to person. Your interpretation differs from person to person, but emotions are the same. So try and figure out the emotion of the poet. Next aspect that we are going to deal with is next one, please. Is the musical components, musical elements. When you're talking about musical elements, you need to deal with alliteration, assonance, rhyme scheme, rhythm, and meter. We aren't going to spend much time on that. The simple reason is that my musical intelligence is very, very low. So what I would do in such context is I would get the help of the technology, multimodal. Better, I would use one of my students, if that particular student has the musical intelligence, I would get the students to perform in my class. Still, if I got a colleague who is good at it, you can take help from your colleague once a while or an expert from outside. You don't have to do it for every class. Maybe one poem in a semester, one poem in a year, a couple of poems in a year. You can get those people to perform in the class. So, because music is extremely important. All of us, whether we understand, Michael Jackson's lyrics or not, we appreciate his music, mainly because music is so very appealing, universally appealing. So the music is very important. When you're dealing with the poem, I want you to remember that music is very, very important. We need to explain to the students what exactly we mean by alliteration, what we mean by assonance, what we mean by rhyme scheme, and the rhythm and the meter as well. Very briefly, I'll touch on that. Next one, please. When you're talking about alliteration and assonance, I believe in inductive approach rather than giving a definition. The problem in giving definition to start with is definition is a crystallized wisdom. It's very difficult to plod through it. That's the reason why most of the students tend to memorize the definitions that we give. If you follow inductive approach, you give the examples, and then from the examples, you reach the rules. Okay, from specifics to generalizations. That would be a better approach. So if you want to teach alliteration to the students, instead of telling them alliteration is, for instance, the definition, one of the definitions goes that alliteration is the repetition of same consonant sounds in the neighboring words. If you tell them that, okay, I don't think that many students are going to understand that. Okay, give them examples like of, they are in the red color, wanted where, way leads on to way. Ask the students to look at not the letter, but the sound wa. Okay, wanted where, way leads on to way. The repetition of the same sound. These are all consonant sounds. Okay, if you want me to explain consonant, I don't know how we could put it across to the students, but we all know that consonant sound is such a speech sound which is produced with the partial or the complete closure of the vocal tract. Okay, it's very difficult. Instead of explaining these concepts, we can give more number of examples. Need not necessarily be only from this particular poem. Am I audible enough? Because I keep getting reminders that increase the volume. Okay. Okay. Right. I'll try. This is the maximum that I could do. So you bring examples from other poems as well to illustrate this particular idea. Same is the same thing we can think of assonance. Okay, assonance. Give them the examples like as far as, ages and ages. Okay, as just as, the same sound that's been repeated. Okay, so if it's a vowel sound, when it is repeated in the neighboring words, contiguous words in the neighboring phrase or line or sentence, you could call them an assonance. Again, by giving more number of examples. The poem might not give all examples, but you can take it from other poems and illustrate this idea. The next one is you can look at the rhyme scheme. The rhyme scheme, okay, we know that we need to look at the last word or the last sound. Okay, if you look at the first stanza, for instance, you got wood as the last word. The last sound is duh. Okay, give them an alphabet A. Next line, both. The sound is th. Okay, that's a different kind of sound. Give them a B, different alphabet because it's not same as the first sound. Next line, the word is stood. The sound is duh. Okay, it's the same as would. Give them the same alphabet. Same is the case with the next line. Could, duh, growth, same as the second line, both. So the rhyme scheme is AB, AAB, and it's almost like a formula. Should it help our learners to understand the poem? Then all I would say is that these are all important for the poets. Poets consciously do that. Okay, they craft in such a way that there is a kind of rhyme scheme because it is that which gives the lyrical quality. It is this which gives the rhythm to the poem. That's the reason why we need to create a kind of awareness among the learners. Okay, to focus on these aspects. Next one, please. Okay, rhythm referring to the pace of the poem, the tempo of the poem, and the meter is it's a 4 metric feet per line, which is called iambic tetrameter. So what we are going to do is, instead of explaining all these things, you can explain to the extent that is possible, focusing on this poem, bringing examples from the other poems. The easiest way is to play it. When you're playing it, okay, next one, please. When you're playing it, you can get the students to sing it along with the song. I'll tell you the advantage of this particular, or any song for that matter, when we sing along. Play it, please. No, next one, please. Yeah, the play it. It's a video.
Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both, and be one traveler long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that, the passing there had warned them really about the same. And both that morning equally lay, and leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh, somewhere ages and ages hence. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference.
Thank you. Play it any number of times. Play it any number of times that you want to. Get the students to sing along. The advantage of getting students to sing along is you don't have to teach pronunciation separately. You don't have to teach rhythm separately. They get it. You are teaching them vocabulary. You are in a way teaching them grammar. You are teaching them some important ideas. Okay, you're doing so many things. That's the advantage of using songs in the classrooms. Okay, so get them to. The song is something which is a kind of perennial appeal to everybody, irrespective of the age. Everybody likes a song. Get the students to hum it, even if they don't remember the word. Once you are successful in doing it, you'll be able to be a successful teacher. Okay, that's about the importance of music. When you're teaching poetry, we are focused on two aspects so far. We need to focus on emotions, and we need to focus on the rhythm. Next one, please. We need to focus on the other aspect, that is a poetic structure. Okay, critically evaluated. I'm coming to it in a short while. Okay, look at the stanzaic arrangement here. In the first poem that you have you've got 3 lines in each stanza. Next poem has 4 lines in each stanza. The third poem has 3 lines in the first stanza and 9 lines in the second stanza. So the point here is that when the poets write a poem, they decide on the structure. Okay, whether it should be 2 lines, 3 lines, 4 lines, 5 lines, or irregular stanza, and they have a reason behind it. It's not that erratically they write. It's not that whenever they want to stop, they stop, go on to write the next stanza or the next paragraph. They don't do that. There is a reason behind it. And in today's context, to emphasize on the importance of significance, we have got visual poetry. Next one, please. Okay, and the visual poetry is quite popular among the students. I mean, this poem is titled "All My Important Thing Gets Done in the Shower." When the person is taking a shower. When you take a shower, it's not that your mind stops functioning. You think of so many things. And here, the person who takes a shower is thinking of mom and dad, thinking of college, thinking of zoo, thinking of football, and so many things. Very rarely our thinking is, we stick on one particular area and then think about it. Okay, very often we jump from thought to thought. We jump from one idea to another idea. This is precisely what, very graphically, I would say that this has been described here. The person who is taking a shower is under the shower, and look at the way the words are showering on him. Okay, next one, please. I'm not discussing the content of these poems. I'm merely showing a different structures that the poets make use of. Okay, you got the eyeball over here. You got the flights taking off. Next one, please. And you got a structure. You got a wine bottle over here. There's a beautiful line over here. Okay, it says that I cried when you were bodily united and mentally united. Talking about the union of two persons, union of two souls. I don't think that anybody can explain this better than this. Okay, you got a wine bottle over there. Next one, please. You got a poem like a cat, but the poem is about a cat. The next one, I'm not sure about what it is. I mean, you got just about 4 words. The 4 words are flow, grow, show, and blow. And look at the way, just with the 4 words, the poet has organized it. Okay, you don't have to be verbose. You don't have to think of too many words. Okay, even with a few words, look at the way the poet has created one over here. Next one, please. Okay, we need to think of the structure of this particular poem. It may be, you might think that it is quite obvious to the students because it is there in print, and you may think that the students are able to notice the structure of the poem. But unless you point it out, okay, unless you make a conscious effort to get them to look at it, they may not look at it. They may even skip it. Okay, so obviously they need to get to know that the poem has 4 stanzas and it has 5 lines. Okay, next one, please. If a poem has 5 lines or a stanza has 5 lines, it is called quintet. In case you want to introduce a jargon of that sort, you could do it, but it's not a must. I mean, they need to know that. I want the students to understand that each poem has a structure of its own. Okay, even the same poet, when they write a different poem, they vary the structure. And the structure has a purpose. Structure has a semantic purpose. Okay, structure has emotional purpose. There are so many reasons why a poet organizes the structure the way he organizes it. Okay, the structure cannot be reshuffled. The structure cannot be reorganized. If you look at this particular poem, the poet starts from a very personal experience and moves on to universalizes it. Okay, so the way a poet is organized as the structure is very significant. The next one, please. Okay, I've rushed it mainly because, I don't think that we've got enough time to deal with it in detail, but the basic idea is this. We started off looking at the emotions, the significance of emotions, and we looked at the significance of metrical quality. We looked at the significance of structure. Let's go on to look at the significance of poetic devices. Okay, every poet has or our own or his own devices. They use number of devices. There are a number of devices that are possible to be employed in the poems. But the poets mostly employ 2 things. Almost all the poets. I don't think that you've got any poet without a metaphor, without an imagery. But if you're looking at Robert Frost, and he goes in for repetition, parallelism, ambiguity, punctuation marks, and biographical. Let's spend few moments on each one of these things. Why is metaphor important to Robert Frost? Next one, please. Okay, he says poetry begins in metaphors. To him, it's so very important. Most of his poems begin with the metaphors. Let's look at the metaphor of this poem in a short while. He says that poetry begins in metaphors. These metaphors can be trivial metaphors, pretty metaphors, grace metaphors, and we need to figure out what exactly he means by each one of these terms like pretty and grace. But he says that the metaphors convey the profoundest thought. Okay, using metaphor is important, but these metaphors should convey the profoundest thought. And another interesting thing he says is that poetry allows the poets to say one thing and mean something different. This is a well-known technique most of the writers make use of, especially when the poets live in a fascist regime, oppressive regime. Okay, they resort to this kind of a technique. Whatever they want to say, they don't say it straight away. They say it gently. They say it slyly. They say it slantingly, so that they don't get arrested. They don't get coerced. So the point I'm making here is one of the important poetic devices to all the poets, especially to Robert Frost, is a metaphor. Metaphor is important. You need to explain what a metaphor is, Okay, depending on the level of your students, depending on the capability of your students, you can decide, okay, when you are going to define metaphor. But don't start with a metaphor, definition of metaphor, expose them to a lot of metaphors from this poem, from other poems, and then and show them what a metaphor is. It's easy to define. You could say that metaphor is a comparison of two asymmetrical, two different objects, okay, and the two different things. And if you say that I don't know how far they will be able to make a sense of it. And you could also say that metaphor is very much similar to simile. The only difference is simile uses expressions like as and like, whereas metaphor does not use it. I mean, the simplest example that we can think of is a chicken-hearted and pig-headed and things like that. Okay, so expose the learners to plenty of examples, not just one or two. By one or two examples, they may not be able to understand what a metaphor is. Okay, you need to give them a lot more examples and then tell them this is what a metaphor is, and this is the impact of metaphor. This is what a metaphor does to your poem. Okay, so that's one of the ways in which you could introduce some of the poetic devices to your students. Next one, please. Okay, two roads diverged in a yellow wood. As I said, the poet himself says the poem begins with a metaphor. This is a metaphor of this particular poem. Two roads diverged in a wood. As we said earlier, the poem is about a traveler. Okay, a traveler who stands at the crossroads where the road bifurcates and looks at one particular road and decides to take on the other road. Okay, so that's the kind of dilemma that he faces, the decision that he makes. The poem is about a traveler who is at the crossroads, the dilemma that he is faced with, and the decision that he is forced to make. That is the kind of metaphor that he is faced with. Then images. Okay, image again is the problem. I mean, even like at my age, I find it difficult to identify the images. If you give me a poem and ask me to identify the images in the poem, I don't know whether I'll be able to do it, even though I know that images are word pictures. Okay, images are descriptions. Images are descriptions of a person's place or thing, and all the five senses can be made use of when you deal with an image. Okay, I know what a definition of image is, but if you ask me to identify an image in a poem, I may not be able to do so. So the best way to make the students familiarize with the poem is show them the images, whatever way that you can. Give them the hyperlinks if you're using a online mode. Okay, let the students look at the images, familiarize themselves with the images, then images would become clearer to them. Just one image I want to focus on is, look at the term grassy. Okay, just that simple word, grassy. Okay, look at the freshness, green in color, strewn with the grasses. All these things come out, they emerge out of the poem, they pop out of the poem. Okay, that is the significance of images. Images, they make a great impact on the audience, on the readers. So we need to familiarize the learners in identifying the images. Next one, please. Okay, another technique is repetition and parallelism. Frost, for instance, repeatedly makes use of. Okay, and repetition, parallelism are one and the same. The only difference is that both of them are the use of same words, phrases, lines, or sentences. When you repeat yourself, when you repeat either a word or a phrase or a line or a sentence, it becomes a repetition for both. The only difference between repetition and parallelism is parallelism has to have a same grammatical structure. It has to have a same grammatical form, whereas repetition need not necessarily be. It can be repeated in any way. Okay, we need to get the students to look at the words that are repeated in the poem. Okay, ask the students. If there is time, I would definitely ask you to, identify some of the repetition, some of the parallelisms. Lack of time, so I'm pointing it out myself. Repetition. Ask the students to look at the word I. Look at the number of times that it is repeated in the poem. Quickly. First stanza, I stood, I could. Third stanza, I kept, I doubted, if I should. Last stanza, I shall be, I. Okay, critics say that there are about 8 times the word I is repeated. That makes a point that it is totally an autobiographical poem. How the poet repeats. If you don't highlight this particular aspect, the students may not notice it. You need to look at things there are many things that are repeated. I'm just giving an illustration of how this word I is repeated because I'm going to relate to the autobiographical elements. Similarly, parallelism, and what you find in the red color is a parallelism, the same structure that is being repeated. And sorry, I could not travel both, and be one traveler, long I stood and looked down one as far as I could. Okay, the same structure is being repeated. Highlight these aspects. Okay, these are all important to appreciate the poem. Next one, please. Look at the punctuation marks. Okay, very innocent, innocuous things. Normally, we don't pay attention to the punctuation marks, but in poetry, it becomes very, very important. Not so much in prose, but in poetry, every punctuation becomes important. Let's look at the punctuation marks here. You got a comma there. You got a semicolon in the first stanza. Second stanza, same. Third stanza, you got a period over there. You got an exclamatory mark over there. Last stanza, you got a colon over there, and you got a dash over there. Do you think that Frost used them, just splash them across the poem? I mean, no reason for using this kind of a punctuation marks. Mind you, punctuation marks are extremely critical in poetry, because we know that poetry is the best words in the best places. When poets use such a best thing, they do only the best things, whatever they write. If they are acclaimed poets, everything that they do with the poem is very, very important. Okay. Briefly about the punctuation marks. If you have a period, we know that something that ends. But other punctuation marks indicate the kind of continuity. If you look at comma, for instance, in the first line, 2 roads diverged in a yellow road. There is a comma there. What's the purpose of comma there? And if you look at the second, third, and fourth line, there are no punctuation marks. But in the first line, there is a comma there. So there has to be a meaning. What is the meaning? The meaning is there is a kind of pause. 2 roads diverged in a yellow road. I'm sorry, I could not travel both. Okay, the pause is very important over there. He's in a dilemma. He is indecisive. He doesn't know what to do with it. Okay, so there is a punctuation mark over there. And let's look at the semicolon there. To where it bent in the undergrowth. Normally, we would expect a period at the end of a stanza, but he has got a semicolon over here. He has got a semicolon because it is not the end of what he is trying to do. The idea continues. It goes on to the, like as we say, run on line. It goes on to the next stanza. Okay, so you have a semicolon whenever you want to establish a kind of connectivity. The line that appears after the semicolon gives the reason as to why he had chosen that particular road and not the previous road. As we said, he stands at a point where he looks at both the roads. So he looks at the first road. He says that I looked down one as far as I could and where it bent in the undergrowth. He looks at one particular road, then goes on to say, then I took the other. Why did he take the other? As just as fair and having perhaps a better climb. Okay, he goes on to give the reason as to why he had taken the other road, okay, only after the semicolon. So that's how the connectivity is being established. Okay, and quickly, we have an exclamatory mark in the third stanza. Oh, I cut the first one for another road. It's exclamatory because he's saying something which is impossible to happen. He knows about it. He goes on to say, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. He knows that he will not be able to come back once he is traveling on a particular road. Nobody can come back and then take another road. He's saying something impossible. That's the reason why you have got an exclamatory mark over here. The next stanza, you've got a colon there. Somewhere ages and ages ends, you've got a colon over there. Colon in a way connects what appears after the colon and what goes before the colon. The connectivity is this. Okay. Connectivity, in a way, what appears after the colon exemplifies, gives reason, consolidates, okay, strengthens what he wants to say. Here he gives reason as to why or what he wants to communicate to the others. The colon is because he says somewhere ages and ages hence. Okay, what is that he is going to tell them? And that's what follows. Okay, 2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Again, the dash over there. Okay, dash, it's dash because there is a pause. Okay, I took the one less traveled by. Okay, because of the pause he uses. The dash reminds me of another American poet, well-known poet. Next one, please. Okay, Emily Dickinson, 19th century American poet. The interesting thing about this particular poet is that, she, as long as she was alive, she published only about 9 poems. But posthumously, her sister-in-law found sheets of paper in her bureau and she got them published. More than 1,800 poems were published. In all her poems, the punctuation mark that he used, mostly only one punctuation mark, that is dash. It doesn't mean that she didn't know other punctuation marks. She deliberately used the punctuation mark. The punctuation mark that she used was the dash. Especially when it comes to the last line, she would use only dash because that would indicate the circularity of the poem, the cyclical nature of the poem. Okay. The point I'm trying to emphasize here is that punctuation, don't dismiss it. In prose, it may not be so very important, but in poem, punctuation marks are extremely critical. Next one, please. autobiographical elements. Don't you think that you feel like visiting Capitol? Okay, Capitol, we know that is in America where the legislature meets and the president's inaugural ceremony also takes place. Okay, the poem, when I was referring to, the repetition, I said I is being repeated. This is out and out an autobiographical poem. If you know something about Robert Frost, we know that Robert Frost was the most honored American poet. Okay, he was given the Pulitzer Prize 4 times. He was given 40 times the honorary degrees, and he was nominated for Nobel Prize 31 times, but he did not win it. Okay, but anyway, he was the most honored poet. The greatest honor, he himself said, that was given to him in 1961 when John F. Kennedy presidency was inaugurated. He was asked to recite a poem. Okay, that was the first time a poet was asked to recite a poem. That's one important. Secondly, that was the first televised presidential inauguration in America, or any country for that matter. And Frost, when he was reading out the poem that he wrote for the occasion was a dedication. But what happened that particular day was, it was a sunny day, no doubt, but it was a windy day. So the paper that he was holding in his hand flew out of his hand. He remained unruffled and started, reciting a poem that he wrote 20 years before, The Gift Outright. The poem that he wrote for the occasion was a dedication, but he was not able to recall the line. So he went on to recall the poem Gift Outright. And immediately after the recitation, and he received applause, thunderous applause from the audience. Okay, that is the kind of recognition that was given to him. And another important aspect was, till he was 40 years old, he tried to publish his poems in America. He was not able to succeed. So what happened was, in 1912, he went to England. That's where he was recognized as a poet. He was able to get 2 anthologies published, but he was forced to leave out of England in a matter of 2 years' time. In 1914, you know the significance of it. That was the year the First World War broke out. But luckily, because he was able to get the anthologies published, his fame reached the other side of the Atlantic Ocean even before he could reach. So once he reached, there was no looking back. He was recognized as the most celebrated poet in America. So the poem, The Road Not Taken, should have been about the poem, the road he had taken. He says, I had taken the road less traveled by. And yes, it was a risky road. He decided to become a poet. That's the reason why he sold off his property and went over to England, and all the experience that he had over there. So the poem should have been on the road that he had taken, but he decided to give a title, The Road Not Taken. Maybe somewhere in his mind, in the recess of his mind, there is always a feeling that he should have taken the other road rather than the road that he had taken. All of us have that, like we are confronted with so many choices. The choices like the job, choice like our life partner, choices like, there are so many choices. We always wonder after things have happened, my life would have been better. Okay, had I chosen that, had I did that, that longing. That's the reason why, even though the poem is about the road he had taken, because he ends the poem by saying that I took the road less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. So it should have been the road taken, but he titles as The Road Not Taken. Okay, so this poem is out and out an autobiographical poem. If you want to bring in autobiographical elements, bring in this kind of snippets so that the students get excited about the poet. Don't say that the things like Robert Frost was born in 1964. He was born in San Francisco and died in 1963. He died in Massachusetts. Who is interested in all these details? Yes, are not important. Many students hate history primarily because of this kind of minute detail that we give them. Give them the detail that would heighten the appreciation of the poem. Okay, next one, please. Okay, this is the warning that we need to keep. Okay, it's better to teach a poem too little rather than too much. Okay, I'm sure that you are aware of a technique called squeezing the dry towel. The dry towel itself is dry. If you squeeze it, what will come out of it? This is what we do. We take a poem, we discuss it thread back, word by word, line by line. I did it today because there's the only opportunity I have to look at different kind of aspects. Otherwise, if you were to teach a poem in the class, I would have focused on just 1 or 2 aspects and left it to the readers. I want the readers to grapple with the poem. They may not understand anything, but to the extent that they can understand it, leave it to the students. And Robert Frost has an interesting image for that. He says, a poem like a piece of ice on a hot stove. It must ride on its own melting. Okay, beautiful image. Okay, the poem should be like a piece of ice on a hot stove. You know how it melts gently, slowly, gradually. That's how a poem has to be taught. So far, we were looking at, what what's to be done with the poem. Now we need to look at the other dimension of it. I don't think that we have got time, but let's look at to the extent that we can look at. Next one, please. We need to look at creativity. Okay. Creativity is extremely important. I deliberately titled as creativity because it isn't necessarily in terms of creative writing. It can be in terms of anything. So let's look at the next slide, please. Okay. E. Cummings, as I said earlier, write poetry for God's sake. It's the only thing that matters. So when you're teaching a poem, try and make your students poets. Ask them to make an attempt, because according to E. Cummings, another American poet, writing poetry is the only thing that matters in life. Next one, please. Okay, I would wish you could write a poem of some intense moment of your life. Okay, you are the saddest moment or your happiest moment. Okay, I wish I had time. I wanted you to write a time. I want you to have an experience of writing a poem, but I'm skipping it. Okay, you need to write a poem. Okay, next one, please. After writing a poem, what are you going to do with the particular poem? Okay, and what kind of poem that you can write? When you think of a poem, we don't have to think of only epics. We don't have to think of in terms of odes, in terms of ballads. Okay, these days people are talking about free verse, doggerel, limerick, haiku, slam poetry, concrete poetry, ekphrastic, tanka, and villanelle, sestina. There are so many terms. I wish I could explain all these things, but there are so much opportunities for the learners to try their hands in different kinds of things. And lastly, acrostic. Acrostic is something that even a kid, a first standard, can try it out. We know that acrostic is take me a word, okay, take me a phrase, and writing a line according to the spelling. Okay, I thought I should give you an example of Trump. Write a poem on Trump. Okay, everybody is talking about Trump these days. If you like Trump, start with the T, mention some of the adjectives. If you don't like Trump, use adjectives against him. If not a line, you could think of some adjectives to be described. So this is something that learners can play around with. Next one, please. Okay, for the kids, you've got so many sites which welcome the poems. Okay, it's very difficult to get poems printed, but very easy to get the poems e-printed. Okay, ask the students, encourage the students. This is one way in which you can encourage the students. Only when they see their names in print, a name in online or some source, they will feel excited to do it. How long can they write only for themselves? They need to write for others' eyes. They can't write only for their own eyes. So encourage your students to write for others' eyes as well. Next one, please. If you can't write poem on your own, you can play around with the poem that you read. Okay, all of us are familiar with the films. Okay, we know that films are made based on novels. Films are based on plays. Okay, Harry Potter, we know that we know that we have got about 7 novels, but we have got 8 films based on that. All the Shakespeare's plays have been filmed. So channel conversion, converting one into the other, by which I mean novels into films, plays into films, stories into novels, poems into stories, stories retold, abridged reversions, classic into graphics. These are some other things that we can get the students to do it. Regarding this poem, what is it the poem can be done? Next one, please. Next one, please. Yeah, you can use this poem to convert it into a flash fiction. Okay, flash fiction, the other terms used are mini sagas. Okay, drapple, short stories. You can do many things with this particular poem. Using this poem as a base, the theme of the poem as a base, or emotion as the base, you can tweet. You can do tweeterature. Tweeterature is a combination of Twitter and literature. This is the latest format of literature. The last 1 decade, people have been following it. And then you've got the graphic organizers. Jacob, can I check with you? When do I end it? Can I have 5 minutes, or can I end it now?
Go ahead, sir. You have 5 minutes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Graphic organizers. It's not necessary that we need to deal all the time with the words. We can also encourage the students to do something, some graphics. Next one, please. Just look at the graphics that are done over here. And especially the last one, I like it very much. The guy, look at the way his imagination functions. Nothing very fantastic about it. All that he has done is he has taken the last 4 lines and look at the way he has done it. Somewhere ages and agents, 2 roads diverged in a wood in one direction, and he is portraying the dilemma. Look at the imagination of this particular person. Very simple, but yes, he was able to do it so well. Next one, please. Okay, graphic representation. I wish we could listen to it. Can we listen to this? The last video, please. Can we watch this?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
The road not taken. two roads diverged in a yellow wood. And sorry, I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other as just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear, though as for that the passing there had warned them really about the same.
Yeah, can you stop it, Jacob?
Yes.
And both.
Next one, please. Okay, so they don't, you sort of motivate your students to write poems. In case they're not able to write poems, you can get the students to do different kinds of things based on this particular poem. Graphic representation is one such thing. The task that I wanted to give was choose the entire poem, or choose one or two stanzas, or choose one or two lines, and I want you to sketch it out. Okay, you don't have to be an artist to do it, but some kind of a sketch would have been suffice. Skipping it. Next one, please. You can also get the students to recreate the poem visually, perhaps. Okay, you can ask the students to think of recall. Okay, recall words, recall phrases, recall lines, recall some of the ideas from the poem. And once after you have done with the poem, get the students to do all these things and ask the students to put it in some kind of shape. We are familiar with the mind mapping. It can be in the form of word cloud or tree or butterfly, any shape that they want to. It doesn't have to be continuous lines. It doesn't have to be grammatical lines or sentences. They can organize it graphically the way they want to organize it. So it has a kind of visual appeal. The idea is you want the students to spend some time with the poem so that they're able to internalize it. Whenever they are faced with any kind of optional context, they should be able to recall this poem. They should be able to remember the poem. That's the reason why we can get the students to recreate the poem. So see, you can how you can be creative using somebody else's work of art. Next one, please. Okay, Instagram. I had the opportunity to come to your part of the country, our part of the country, about 2 or 3 times. I mean, I just fell in love with your place. These are the days of selfies. Take a selfie and put it on Instagram. Instagram, is a platform which allows only the photographs and the videos, unlike other platforms like, Facebook and things like that. Allow the students to do it. They get excited. Ideas getting excited. Ideas giving different kind of experience to the students. Next one, please. Get the students to compare. They say comparison is the way to knowledge. You can get the students to compare 2 poems of the same poet. It can be more number of poems, 2 poems, 3 poems. It can be the other poet. Ask them to identify the similarities and dissimilarities of the poem. That's how they will be able to understand the poem, appreciate the poem. Fras's obsession with the wood, for instance. He has got another poem called Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, where he uses the word. Whose woods are these? I think I know. Between the woods and the frozen lake. The woods are lovely, dark and deep. I know all of us are familiar with this line because Jawaharlal Nehru had it on his table. Even at his deathbed, he had these lines, I believe. Ask the students to identify the similarities, dissimilarities between. That's how the intertextual comparisons bring out the best appreciation among the students. Next one, please. Okay. Teaching does not end there. You need to go on to give the post-teaching task. Post-teaching task can be anything. In spite of all your efforts in the class, there will be students in your class who would not have understood you. There could be certain gray areas. So days of this sort, multimodal approach, direct them to the site where there are some materials. Okay, you have an analysis of the poem. And, poet Robert Frost is described as a nature poet. By reading one poem, it's very difficult to make out whether he is a nature poet. So give them the other poems like After Apple Picking, Mending Wall, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. Let them read through the poems, not thoroughly. You and I today, when we read the poem, we look through the poem. We don't look at every aspect of the poem. Let them look at it, and then if possible, let them write an essay. And then you ask them to recite a poem and ask them to videograph it, ask them to sketch it. And based on the multiple intelligences, give them multiple tasks. Let them choose the intelligence that appeals to them. Why to give tasks? You can always ask the students to set a task for themselves and let them do the task on their own. We teachers, we think that it's our responsibility to give them a task. Okay, need not necessarily be. Ask the students to construct their own task and let them come up with some kind of answers. Okay, I'm ending with this. When we end it, what do we normally say? Next one, please. Okay, the thanks and the sorry are the 2 most abused words. Okay, for every context, we use expressions like a sorry and thank you. But when you are using these cliched expressions that are repeatedly being used, okay, do it in a different way. Okay, so shock the audience, surprise the audience, say it in a way that could be different from what others would do it. That's what I thought of. Nothing original about it. I've taken from the website, but thanks, but reconsider it. Sorry, I would have, given you some kind of task. I didn't make it really a workshop, though the, organizers wanted to be a workshop. I wish I had given the workshop, but I couldn't plan out the time properly. And then I enjoyed doing this session with you. Thank you so much. And think of some takeaways and no questions, I guess.
Well, we've had a very wonderful session, and it is packed true and true from end to end with a lot of information, a lot of insights, and a lot of things that we can take away with us. And I see one of the comments that was very interesting, sir, was somebody saying very energetic. And I would like to add to that, yes, very passionate and very, very educative. And we've had a very wonderful session. We have learned a lot about how we should be teaching poetry. I think some of us right now must be kicking themselves for having taught poetry the wrong way for so many years. From starting with paraphrasing words and sentences to actually explaining the meaning every single word and every single phrase that is being that has been used by the poet. And then, trying to squeeze out as much as we can from a single line or a single phrase for the students to understand. You have introduced a lot of different methods, a lot of different ways of teaching poetry that would make it very interesting for students. And we have surely learned a lot of things from you today. Very sadly, we have not been able to go really deep into some of the approaches and the ideas that you have presented to us, but I'm sure there will be people who will be asking for more. And sir, in the days to come, if that certainly happens, we will definitely come back to you and ask you to do another session on teaching poetry. So we have come to the end of our session this evening. We have a lot of questions, but we are running out of time. So what we are going to do is we're going to take all the questions and we're going to mail them to you, sir, which we hope that you will be able to find some time to answer in the future. Very, very pertinent questions, very, very important issues that have been raised by our attendees, and we hope that we will be able to provide them with some kind of answers or responses soon. So we would like to acknowledge at this very moment the presence of Reverend Brother Albert L. Dakar, the principal of St. Anthony's College. A few words from you, brother, just before we wind up our session.
Jacob, can you hear me?
Yes, brother.
Professor K. Elango, Professor S.M. Sungo, Professor Karbaman, and all the participants who are attending this program. It was a very enlightening session given by our professor. I'm not a literature student, but I thought if there is a teacher who would take a poem in this way, as told by Professor K. Elango, I should have not chosen the subject what I chose today. You should have brought a lot of life in my life in learning the literature and the poem. I'm so thankful, Professor K. Elango. We have got so many teachers attending. I think their outlook will change. Their teaching will change. And you really have brought life. I liked when you said, don't matter about the grammar, but bring emotion, bring life, bring creativity in the life. I think this, if the teachers take it seriously and go to the classroom, they will really bring life. And I like the way you put the songs. Had there been songs when the teachers taught us, things should have been very different. I'm grateful also to Professor Sungo for sponsoring this program. We are going to take something great home from this 6 days workshop. And of course, the President, Ma'am Karbaman, hats off to you for getting such a wonderful resource person. Thank you, and I wish God's blessing that we continue to learn in the coming days. Professor K. Elango, always help us, assist us, enlighten us. Thank you, Professor Jacob.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, brother, very much for those very wonderful words. And you have, I think you have put them in the very appropriate way for all of us. So thank you so much. We will be having a formal vote of thanks also towards the end of our workshop. But Professor K. Elango, we have learned a lot from you today. Thank you very, very much. These words of thanks are, as you have said, cliched, but they are the best things that we have at the moment to offer you on behalf of all of us. So thank you so much, sir, for taking the time to prepare, to compile all the videos, to put down all the insights onto on the PPT. I know it is not easy. It has been so thank you so much to you, Professor K. Elango. We have learned a lot from you. Thank you so much, Professor S.M. Sungok, for sparing your time to be with us from the beginning to the end of the session, and for sharing your thoughts and your ideas on the workshop, and also for encouraging us to look forward to more workshops in the future. So we are taking you at your word. We will definitely come back with more sessions in the days to come. And Professor T.K. Kharbaman, she has a lot of ideas and a lot of workshops already lined up. So we know that in the days to come, Altai Meghalaya Chapter St. Anthony's College are going to collaborate again in the future. And with the sponsors coming from you, we are looking forward to more events in the days to come. So thank you so much also, Brother Albert, for joining us, even though you were busy with some emergencies. You joined us a little bit late, but we are very grateful to you for being able to join us as we come towards the end of the session. Dear attendees, we will be using the same link for the next 5 days. Please do not delete the email. Please keep the link safe. Do not share it with anybody who has not registered for this workshop. We wanted to keep it as proper as possible so that we will not have any interference in the middle. We would also like you to continue to send us your feedbacks. We will be sending the feedback form on the last day of the workshop. So you will be given a short quiz. We will test whether you have really attended the session or not. And we are going to send you the feedback form. You have to answer those the quiz properly, and we will then award you a certificate. So on Monday, we will have another session, but this session will be on classroom management by Dr. Pinsuk Lin Aim Yong. And so we hope that we will be able to, again, to learn something from that session as we did today. So with these few words, we would like to thank you for joining us today and for being with us and for bearing with us. We had some initial problems with the audio today, but towards the end, we had a great time of listening to Professor K. Elango teaching us how to teach poetry. So with these few words, we would like to thank all of you for joining us and for being with us today. God bless you. See you again next week at 4 p.m. for another session of learning on the methods of teaching English. Thank you so much. God bless.
Jacob, photograph.
Yes, can all of you unmute your videos and unmute your, just unmute your videos so that we can take a photograph of everybody who has attended the session today. Professor Nathaniel, can you make it a grid view for everybody?
Because this is a webinar format, so it'll be slightly difficult, but we will try.
Okay, I've got it. Okay, I've got as many people as I can on the grid, and here, oh yes, some of you can unmute your videos. Can you unmute your videos, please? I can take a photograph right now. There you go. Wonderful.
Just hang on, sir. I'll just promote some of the attendees, and then
yes, enough. Just enough to fill one page.
Jacob, please request Professor K. Elango also to come to the video.
Well, I cannot see Professor K. Elango anymore. I think he has disappeared. Can we put him on the top of the session, the top of the page? Yep. All right. So here is me taking a photograph of everybody who has attended today's session. Smile, please. Those of you who have not been able to smile, I shall Photoshop your teeth on you. All right. Okay, thank you so much. Signing out. See you again on Monday at 4 p.m. Please do join in a little bit early, say about 3:55, especially those who will be presenting and those who will be monitoring and moderating. please join in a little bit early so that we can set up your gear and your network. All right. Thank you so much once again. God bless you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Jacob.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
ma'am. Thank you.